All right, in this video, what we're going to be doing is looking at the differences between the current Foundry environment and the Foundry environment that's going to be made available to you that you can look at as a new look or as a preview right now. And so if you're familiar, Foundry is the AI platform management and development tool that Microsoft has. It's part of Azure. You can launch it from Azure. And you configure some things in Azure, then you get into Foundry, and then you work from there. I believe it used to be called Azure AI Studio. Now it's just called Microsoft Foundry. And as you can see up top, there is something you can click there that would take you into the new Foundry environment. Now, the new Foundry environment is, I'm not going to say, well, maybe it's okay to say that it's drastically different than the experience you have here. You can basically do the same things, but you don't get to them in the same way. So it may be very jarring for you going from what exists here to what's going to exist with the new Foundry. So in this video, what I'm doing is I am basically going to walk through your original Foundry, what's running right now, and then I'm going to show you in the new environment, which I'll slide over to show here, where you can find those things there. So getting started at the top level, you have the ability, obviously this is the landing page when you click on Foundry. This is where you come into, and you would typically come into your main project, which is the default project that was created for that Foundry resource. And over here, you have the ability right at the toolbar. The first thing you can do is you can select from other resources. So I can pick other projects and other things. This is going to be one of the first things that is going to be a big distinction between the present or legacy Foundry, I should say, and the modernized version, which is that in the legacy Foundry, you can jump between multiple resources. So this item right here, Bible-wise, is actually inside of a hub, which is called ThinkMind AI Hub. But there's also a Foundry project called ThinkMind AI, and then there's this project right here. And I can actually jump over between one and the other. So now I'm inside ThinkMind AI, which is actually in a completely different Foundry resource, as you can see here, ThinkMind AI. If I actually go into this Bible-wise, you'll see that this is totally different now. Now it's showing the project because it's part of a hub. And again, you're seeing, it's sort of like seeing different things, including over here, seeing AI services as one of the main resources. So we'll go back to our project main. You can see that that's not there. And over here, we have the actual Foundry resource that's attached to, which is ThinkMind AI Tests. And let's see how that works inside of the new environment. So in the new environment, you do still have this project picker, but basically you can only pick from other projects that are within your environment. You can't jump into other Foundry environments. You're stuck within here. You do have this view all resources, but the view all resources link here actually opens you up in the legacy Foundry, showing you all the resources that are there. And as a comparison, if I go back over here and I click here and I say all resources, you'll see that it's the same view that I'm getting. And the view allows you to see things that are hubs, things that are foundries, things that are projects, all in one view across all your regions with the pricing tier and everything attached to them. From here, you can actually create new projects. So I can click here to create a new project. And when you click to create a new project, you see that you have the choice of creating a Foundry resource or creating an AI Hub resource. In comparison, over here, if I click to create a new project, basically all I can do is create a new project, which, by the way, also potentially will allow you to create a Foundry resource associated with the project, but you're typically dealing specifically at the project level in terms of this user experience. Both environments do have AI chat. In the legacy environment, if I click on this, it shows up as a sidebar, a right sidebar over here on the right. In the new environment, the AI chat has been surfaced all the way up here. You do still have the sidebar when you click on it, so that remains the same, but I can actually go in here and I can ask it some things directly. Now, when I ask it those things, it will actually open them up in the sidebar as well. So that's really the area where everything functions. So all your answers show up here, but you have access to start asking without clicking the button. Both environments also have the docs as a top level view. So I can click on here and navigate directly to docs in the new environment. And this is similar to what you can do in the old environment. Both environments will also let you see all resources. So I can see all resources by clicking here from the drop down. Obviously, you have an all resources button here that would take you to all the resources. And as mentioned, in the new environment, that has been consolidated to one place, which is here. And as of right now, this opens up the old Foundry view. This does not actually have a new view for it. So it actually pops something open to the new environment. Now, the legacy system does have a button for preview features where you can select, enable them. And as of right now, this is not available in the modern environment, probably because the modern environment, as you can see right now, is actually in preview, right? So it's not fully developed at this time. There may be more capabilities coming. The legacy environment has a Azure-like configuration cog for modifying settings, and typically what you can do here is you can change between light and dark themes and change the language and the regional format. So I can go dark, I can go light, pretty straightforward. I have access to privacy, cookies, terms and conditions, trademarks, things of that nature. It's very Azure-like. In the new environment, you click on the profile image, and in here, you have some project details that you can click on. You have the ability to change the language between multiple languages, and you have the ability to switch between light and dark. The profile section also provides the ability to change directories, which is also present in the legacy form of it, the ability to switch directories and sign out. But the legacy system has this other scope drop down where you can use it to change scope. And here I can change the directory, I can change subscriptions, I can change the projects that I'm working on. And as you can see, what you're working in, you can actually modify it to, once again, different Foundry projects from here. This feature and this scope changing is not currently available in the modernized view of Foundry. So let's get into the nitty gritty. So on the landing page, getting beyond that top header, you have a view that gives you your endpoints, your API keys, and libraries where you can basically, there's an endpoint provided based on the SDK that you're using, or the library that you're using. Now in the new model, you don't get access to the SDKs, but you do get the same project endpoints, the same API keys and regions. And in terms of SDK, you don't have anything like that, but you do have this coding quick start for now that'll sort of like show you how to code for this project. in Python or C Sharp. Now, the difference that you'll notice very quickly between the legacy and this new approach is where the control areas are. In legacy approach, you have a sidebar that basically has all these menu items and has these categories for different areas. So you have build, you have observe, you have protect and govern, and then you have open API, which has stored completions and batch jobs, and then you also have your assets. Right, so this is kind of how it's structured, and then at the top level you have your general model catalog and your playground. In the new portal, you don't have any of that. There's no sidebar. You have this landing page. You can immediately start building. And from here, you can kind of start creating an agent, design a workflow, or browse models. And then up top, you have things that sort of equate to the areas that would exist in the old portal. So you have Discover, which I would equate to the model catalog, finding models and things of that nature. You have build, which I would say equates to this build and customize area, and then you have operate, which ultimately I think equates to the observe, optimize, and project governance. Pretty much everything that has to do with managing an existing model and properly governing and doing what you want to do. And then you have my assets, right? Which basically lets you see your model endpoints and things of that nature. And that would all be inside of the build. So while you're building, you can click in and you can see all your assets, and also operate. You can also see your assets in operate. So they've kind of taken everything and broken it apart, simplified it to a certain extent, made it more straightforward. I think made a really nice user experience, made it much nicer, customer facing, I would say. And that's essentially how it's being broken up. So to that end, we will start with the model catalog, which you see here in the legacy system, which gives you high level announcements here, gives you a model leaderboard, and then down here you basically can do your searches of all the models, and then you have a button here that allows you to compare models between each other in terms of like metrics and things of that nature. And you can actually look at it in the list view, you can look at it in a regular view. So pretty straightforward, but again, very, I would say, not very attractive and pretty cluttered. There's a lot of things going on here. You have your general announcements, you have your leaderboards, and then you actually have searching for models. I'm not going to say which is better, which approach is better or not. I'm just reporting on it. In the new approach, in the new UI, they've kind of taken it and they've broken it down into multiple different areas. So new arrivals exist here. You also have start building, and from here you can browse your models. And at the top, you can also click on discover, which will also get you to the models. So if I click on this new arrivals, that's going to take me directly into the model view, into Discover, but it's going to be filtered based on the area that's associated with that new arrival, so you're only seeing that. And you can see the full list by just clearing the filters. If I clear the filters, then I get all 11,000. But obviously, if I click on any one of these, it comes down to 63 because it's just for those specific ones. You also have the option, if you go a little bit further down, to see recent work. Now, this is not always going to be valid, so I wouldn't necessarily use this as a launch pad because you could have deleted things, at least as of right now, in your environment, but they still show up here. So if I click on some of these, you'll see that it's just gonna spin because that item actually doesn't exist. I deleted it, but I was working on it, so it's still registered in the recent work list. So I'm sure this is going to be fixed by the time this goes live and is production ready and all that. But this is a little bit of a bug that's in here. Another thing you can do is you can get to the models by clicking here and clicking Browse Models, which will take you directly into the models so you can see all of them, and then you can filter them as you see fit. And then finally, the best way of working with models is to click on Discover. And when you click on Discover, you'll get an experience similar to the experience from the legacy view. You'll have your featured models, which you have announcements up here, right? So some information, some on models that you can check out. You'll have things that you can explore. You'll have the filters. Essentially, when you click any one of these, they basically filter it out. And then you have leaderboards, and these are the same leaderboards that you see here. Then you have some featured tools, featured solution templates, and models built using Azure AI Foundry. So you've got a lot that you can view and look at. And what they've done is they've actually separated it into multiple pages. This landing page kind of gives you an overview of everything. That's why it's overview. And then from any one of these, you can view all models or explore directly into the model. Or you can actually also click on the models button, which will take you directly into the models. Now over here, you can't do any comparisons, but once you do get into the models, you have the ability to still view the leaderboard, and you have the ability to compare models, which essentially provides a different user experience, but the same capability as is in the legacy environment. Now, another thing that is missing from the new environment that's in the old environment is this visualization, this user interface treatment or UI treatment for when a model has benchmarks associated with it. So I can clearly see here that DeepSeek does not have any benchmarks tied to it as of right now. Now I can use the model, but notice all I see is details, places that I've deployed it to, and licenses, and not much more. Whereas if I go into one of these, for example, Claude Sonnet 4.5, which does have this benchmark on it, when I click on this, I can actually click on the benchmarks, and within the benchmarks, I can see all the benchmarks associated with that particular model. In the new UI, either because that hasn't been created yet, or because the plan is that they're all gonna have benchmarks. If I actually click into an item, for example, DeepSeek v3.2, you can see that there is a benchmark tab here, but when I actually click into it, there's no data available. In contrast, when I go into the Claude that we looked at previously, and I click on benchmarks, you can see that there is actual benchmark data. And from here, I can actually compare models. It'll do a comparison between the different, this and other well-known models in terms of safety, throughput, costs, things of that nature. You have full metric details. You have some performance details. And then you have a statement on the methodology that was used to do the benchmark. So pretty much similar to the way that it worked here, right? You can see that you have the ability to compare with more models, you're comparing with certain, essentially the same kind of data, just displayed somewhat differently. So let's take a look at deploying a model. And in this case, I'm not going to use Claude. I'm actually going to search for GPT, and I'm going to use GPT 4.1. Now, when I click on deploy, it brings me in here and it gives me a choice between all these different deployment types. I can specify the deployment name, and then down here I can actually customize this and decide what AI resource I want to connect to, the version of the model, upgrade policy, content filters, and the throughput for token requests per minute. I've got a lot of things that I can do here. Now, one interesting thing about the old way of doing things is that, for example, if I went back and I said I wanted to open up and deploy DeepSeek, you'll notice that over here it now says West US. And when I customize, you'll see that it's actually connecting me to a totally different resource. It's not tying me to the actual Azure resource that I'm on. I'm in ThinkMind AI tests, but it's tying me directly to ThinkMind AI. So a problem with this previous approach was that when you didn't have quota in your region or anything like that, it would try to find you a region where you already, I suppose, have a resource specified. And if you have quota in that region, it will use that region and deploy in there without you necessarily knowing. So if I just came in here, I really wouldn't know that DeepSeek was connecting me there. I'd really have to go into customize. And what's the dead giveaway is I'm in a different region than the region that I am supposed to be in for this resource. So in the new environment, how is this different? So if I go into DeepSeek and I try to deploy, you now have these two options. One is default settings. Default settings would be like deploying from here without making any changes, right? Just taking as is what's been configured. We're not going to do that now because when you do that, it actually does do the deployment without any kind of checks on you. Let's look at custom settings. So custom settings does something similar to what happens here when you click on customize. It now gives you some more information that you can work with. So over here, you see I still have global standard now that's specified. It's not giving me any other choices. You see that it's actually telling me that I have insufficient quota. And giving me a choice to select another project. Again, we're working at the project level. And then when I click select another project, it's taking me to places where I may have another project available to me. So let's try West US. But because I don't have any project defined in there, it's actually now saying, hey, you have to create a new project, right? So again, this guy is located in West US. And when I open this up, it's already adding an AI resource for me that's going to connect to, deploy to. Over here, I have to create a new project for this to all work. When I click create the new project, you can see that in here, I have to specify the Foundry resource that I'm going to use. It's not defaulting to that other Foundry resource. It's not pulling it out for me. I'm basically creating a new project and a new Foundry resource to host this model in a region where this model can be hosted. So in this case, I don't have quota. So what happens if I say default settings? So just use it the regular way. When I click on that, you can see it opens this up. And you basically go through that same flow where you're having to create the resource. So attempting to now do a deployment with, let's go with GPT-5. Don't click on, if you click on default settings, it will deploy this item because there is quota for it. So over here, I'm going to click on custom settings so you can actually see how this is similar to what's going on in the legacy environment that I can deploy the model for. So I'm using GPT 5.1 chat here, and over here it's also GPT 5.1 chat. When I click use model and I click on customize, you can see it's on global standard, and you have the ability to set the rate limit. It tells you the resource you're connected to, the model version, um, and the content filter, things of that nature. Over here, you have your guardrails, right, which map to this content filter. It's essentially the same thing. They're called guardrails now. You have your rate limit, and then the model settings in here. You can set the version over here, upgrade policy, and that's pretty much it. So essentially the same functionality, a little bit of different experience, but basically functioning the same way. So let's go back here and let's now look at how we manage and view models that we've deployed. So in the legacy portal, in under my assets, you can go to models and endpoints, and in here you'll see all the models that have been deployed. In the new world, you can go to build, and then you click on models, and you see all the models that have been deployed. Now, one thing that the old legacy portal had was this playgrounds view, where you could test out different scenarios, and I actually sort of liked it because you can work from the perspective of playing around with something without necessarily understanding models or anything first. You just kind of come in, hey, I want to do some video, I want to do some audio, I want us to do some images, I want to do some chat, and you click on it. So for example, if I click on the images playground, I don't have any models, but it now explains to me that the next thing I need to do is do a deployment. So I click on create a deployment, and now it filters the models that I see to models that are only associated with creating images. So as I'm going through this user experience, I'm somewhat learning, right? Now, if you happen to already have a model created, so for example, if I click on the chat playground, then it just takes you directly into the playground, and here you can actually switch between the different deployments that you have and do testing of them. In the new environment, there really isn't that playground view for you to work with. You're kind of, you know, put front and center to the notion of models very, very early. But for whatever reason, when you're in here, it kind of brings you in. The first thing you can do is create an agent. You can design a workflow, or you can browse models. There's really no view that gets you into the playground to do anything. To actually get to the playground, what you have to do is go into one of the models that you already have created. So in this case, I'm going to go into my GPT 5.2 here. And then within here, you have a playground. But the good thing here is that you can still switch between different versions and also see popular ones. And then from here, you can actually go and browse other models. And if I go in here, I can actually do a direct deployment into this. Well, it's not deploying into the playground, it's just deploying it. And then it'll ultimately show up in this playground. Now within the playground, you do have access to the same stuff as you had before. So I, can add my initial instruction. So you see it flows very beautifully, and you can see that there's sort of like an automated training or whatever have you, or deployment of information that's passed, as opposed to in the old environment. If I did the same thing, you can see that it's already saying that you have to click on apply changes. So if I did a quick question here, we're not gonna, oh, so if I did a quick check here, we're not gonna get any of our private data, but if I click on apply changes, so don't show this again. Now if I ask the same question, you can see that in Ethiopia, it's saying that's $15. So you do have the ability here to do some things around tokens and set some parameters associated with it. You can also add sections and things of that nature, and sort of like figure your model out properly. And then from here, you can deploy as a web app. You can export it as a prompty file. You can import a prompty file. You can look at prompt samples. And then, of course, you can view the code associated with what you've actually created, right? So I can actually click on view code and I can see the code across multiple API formats. Here's the interface SDK and multiple languages. We've got JSON, C#, curl, Java, JavaScript, and you can do all that. So it's pretty robust here. In the new world, you do have access to code, and the code is located here. So you have the chat, and you can look at the actual underlying code associated with it. Again, you can pick between Open API and REST. You can choose the SDKs, and you can choose the different languages that you want to work within, depending on what you choose. For example, if I choose C#, it'll show you the code for creating this project in C#. You can see the URI and the key. Over here, you can add different tools to this. You can upload files into it and get it indexed. So if you have data that you want to use, it'll leverage it. You can add knowledge in the form of agents. You can add memory, and of course, you have the ability to create new guardrails or reassign guardrails to this or anywhere else. And then you also have the option to save it as an agent, and from here you can actually compare it to other models. So you can go in here, configure this fully, and then save it as an agent, and then start using it as an agent on the backside. Beyond the playground, within the model, you can also look at details, and details will once again give you access to endpoints and the same key information about it, how many tokens, what the guardrails in place are. You have the ability to delete it. You can click on edit to basically change the guardrails. You can't change the deployment name. You can actually change the deployment standards, maybe make some modifications to the quota. This is all sort of available here. You have the endpoints up here. You have the deployment info here. You have the edit button. You have the delete and the edit button here, where you can make some changes to, again, the throughput, the content filter, or guardrails, model version upgrade policy, stuff like that. And then you can click on request quota to actually add more quota if it's needed. And that's the same request quota form that you see here. In the past, if we wanted to see metrics about our model, we click on metrics, and this showcases the different metrics that are associated with it, how it's performing, how many tokens, things of that nature. You can do the same thing here under the Monitor tab. Clicking here gives you the same basic information, gives you some charts and things that you can look at to see how your model is performing. Now, moving on to the build and customize section of the legacy portal, some of the items that exist here have moved to different sections based on how useful they were where they were located, or really to reorganize it and make it, I assume, much more useful to us as we're working with it. So agent stays the same. It's in build here. And clicking in here, you can create agents and do all kinds of cool stuff with it. Over here in the new world, the agents is located in the build section just as previously. And you just click into agents and you can see how it's set up. By default, if there's no agents defined, then basically you can create an agent. You also have the ability to view classic agents. So I can click here, and that's actually going to take me into an agent view of old agents, right? And this agent 971 is the same agent that we're seeing here. And that's associated with the GPT-5 model. And I can then click in there and do some testing of it. But again, this is a legacy agent, so we're not going to mess around with that. New agents function a little bit differently. So I can say agent. And if I go back to the agents view, you can see that basically it's set up there. You can also do fine tuning. So there's a whole fine tuning section that exists here. And this obviously corresponds to the fine tuning that we have here, where you can actually click on fine tune and pick the model that you want to fine tune, and then you're off to the races. This essentially functions the same way. Click on fine tune, pick from a model, one of the models that you can fine tune, and then go through and you're all set. Do whatever you need to do to it. Templates have been moved. So over here, the templates are located as part of this build and customize. Whereas over here, they've been moved over to the Discover. And here are the solution templates that you can pick from. We'll skip over content understanding because that's in preview. And we'll move over to the Observe and Optimize. And in here, we've got two things. We've got monitoring and we've got tracing. So both of these can actually be found inside of either the build or operate. So if I go into my model right here, as you've already seen, I can go into ChatGPT and I can click on model, and that'll show me some monitoring information about that model. I can do the same thing with agents and click in there. And if I go to monitor, same thing, I'll see some information about the monitor. And then you also have access to traces, which you can set up here. Next, we have the protect and govern, which has evaluations, guardrails, risks, and alerts, and the overarching governance. So how does that work here? Well, we've sort of seen it a little bit. Again, in here, you have direct access to evaluations where you can create evaluations directly. You also have this just general evaluation setup, right? Where you can actually create the evaluations again and select what they apply to. So one of them, if I'm inside of a model and I go in here, right, and I create it, you notice that there's nothing over here. I'm not selecting because this is being done for that model. Agents also have evaluations, no different. When I click on create, kind of takes me in here and I can configure it as I need. Guardrails are the same thing. They exist down here, and these are the guardrails, and you can create your own. And within the guardrails, you can specify the risks that you know what the risks are, what you want to block. You can pretty much do a lot with it. You also have a block list that you can create, and you can decide what you want to be inside of that list. you'll notice that alerts over here actually are enabled in the portal. And you can kind of do similar things here. You can go into the portal and set them up. And then you can also go into the operate section, and you can set some of these things up inside of the security posture. You also directly have access to the guardrails. So you can click, you can see what's going on there. And then you have your policies, and you can create a policy. And in here, you can specify what you want to happen with that policy. What are the risks that you're targeting? How you want the responses to come back? What are the controls? What are the exceptions? A whole bunch of things that you can do here. And as stated, governance, we've seen already inside of Operate. You have your security posture that you can specify. And you can see it even has the same Microsoft purview and things of that nature that you can use from here. So we've already looked at the models and endpoints inside of my assets. So let's take a look at the data and indexes and how that applies over here. So back in build, if I go over to knowledge, I can actually connect to multiple resources here for indexing. And of course, we already saw that inside of the models, we do have the ability to upload files and do some things there. So the final thing to look at very quickly is the management center, which is all the way at the bottom. You can click here. And from here, you'll notice that you have access to delete the resource at the resource level. So right now, I'd be deleting this Foundry resource in Azure. Have the access to add users to that specific resource, have the ability to connect to other resources. So I can connect to a storage account, all kinds of stuff like that. And then you can also do that at the project level. So at the project level, I can edit some properties about the project. I can change its name, and I can add users, and I can also connect to resources for that specific project. And here's the full user view, and here's the connected resource view, and here's the overall overview, and here's the other overview right there. So this is all available. Then up top, we have our quotas that you can take a look at. And then you also have a view of all your resources, which we've already seen previously. So let's see how this plays out over here. So we don't have a management center. What we do have is under Operate, we have this admin. And inside of admin, you can kind of do the same kinds of things. But you're going to be starting your flow by clicking into a resource. So you either have the choice of clicking into the individual project, or at the parent level, I can click into the parent. So let's start with the parent, because that's how we did it on the other side. So in here, I can click in here, and for the parent, I can't delete the parent in Azure like I could in the other environment, but I can look at all the projects associated with me, and I can add users to the overall Azure resource. So I'm adding it to ThinkMind AI Test, not just the specific project. And then of course I can also connect to resources up here. So I can add a connection to a resource. So you see storage accounts, you also like the same kinds of things, and I can add a user, and you can enter the username of the person that you want to add, and they'll be given access to this. Additionally, you can go down to the project level. So you can go down here, and then in here you do now have the ability to delete. So you can delete the project. You still have access to go up. You have access to the resources, and then you can add connections at the project level, same way. And then you can add users at the project level. So that's been a look at basically Foundry. We've looked at the old Foundry, and then we've shown you where in the new look Foundry, you can find those same capabilities, and at least it gives you a starting point if it's not comprehensive. Keep in mind that the new Foundry is in preview, so there may be many more features that appear as it goes along before it's actually officially launched. To use the new Foundry, all you have to do is go to your current Foundry now that would launch from Azure and click on this thing here that says a new Foundry. Clicking on that automatically brings you into the new Foundry. If you find that you prefer the old way, or you want to try the old way, or you just don't like it, you want some more time that way, then you simply click on that again. And I would recommend that you provide some feedback. You don't have to, but provide some feedback, because it will help the Microsoft figure things out. And in here, I'm actually going to put some feedback here, and I'm going to say, bring back the playground. And then I'm also going to say to add an indicator to tell us that a model does not or has a benchmark. So those are two things that I would say, and I'm going to submit and continue, and then it's just going to take you right back to the old way. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Tune in next time for another video where we'll be diving into creating some cool agents using purely the Foundry project. So complete low code, creating an agent, working with an agent, deploying an agent to teams, and testing out an agent. Until then, happy coding.